Hello everyone, Norm Kittleson here. Welcome back to another edition of Osprey Watch 22. I am currently at the Osprey Nest site. The Osprey Nest is right here. I'm along the side of the road, US 31, so if you hear a lot of traffic noise behind me, that's why. This is where I have to park in order to get a good vantage point on the Osprey Nest. There's no other way to get closer to it, so this is what I have to put up with in order to make this happen. As I was driving over here this morning, I saw the male osprey crossing the road with a stick in its talons, and it landed with the stick in the nest. I got out of the car, got my camera out. He flew across the road again and was down low behind some bushes on the other side of the road. And I kept my eye on him, and he grabbed a huge piece of bark and came back to the nest with that. I got some stills of that. And then he very shortly thereafter took off, flew down the river. I assume he's going to go fishing. I was down on the mouth of the river earlier this morning, seeing if there was any action down there. I didn't see anything in terms of ospreys, but I did see a lot of small songbirds, got some photos of those. So I'm going to post up here for a while, see if he comes back with a fish. Then I'll go back to the studio and see what we have. So I look forward to talking to you then. And here's the male returning to the nest with the piece of bark that I mentioned in the opening. Osprey are continually adding to their nests the entire time that they're at the nesting site during their season. They're bringing back large sticks, lining material. It's an ongoing process for them. Here's the male taking off, and shortly thereafter, the female rose out of the nest and was kiting or hovering over the nest and squawking, making all kinds of noise, seemed very alarmed. I didn't know what was going on. I kept scanning the area around me, trying to see what was causing her to be so excited. Eventually, she did return to the nest to protect the eggs. Here she is, returning to the nest, and I kept scanning, and I saw a young eagle chasing the osprey. The osprey is in the upper left, the eagle is in the lower right. And it wasn't until I got home and looked at the photos more closely that I noticed that the osprey had a fish in its talons and that the eagle was chasing it, trying to get the fish from the osprey. Now, both osprey and eagles are kleptoparasites, meaning that they will steal food from other species and even from their own species. This is the second time that I have seen an eagle chasing an osprey with a fish this season. The first time was not at this nesting site, but at another location where there's an eagle nest. And they had this dogfight for a little while going on. The osprey was outmaneuvering the eagle pretty easily when all of a sudden this pelican shows up. Now, I've lived in this area for 28 years, and this is only the second time I've seen a pelican in this part of Michigan. So I immediately started taking photographs of that and was really lucky to get a couple of good shots. But eventually, the male eluded the eagle and went to finish its part of the fish and then brought it back for the female, as he always does. And the female, as usual, takes the fish in her beak and flies off out of the nest because they don't eat in the nest unless they're feeding the young. The female always takes off with the fish in her beak and then transfers it to her talons as she's flying to the perch to eat. Now, I don't know why she doesn't take off with the fish in her talons. Seems to me that would make more sense, but this is how she does it. And here she is transferring it to her talons. And then she's going to fly off to her perch to have her part of the fish.
Breaking news. This is a special two-part edition of Osprey Watch 22. Please stay tuned for part 2.
Hello everyone, Norm Kittleson here. Welcome back to Osprey Watch 22. It's Sunday, May 8th. Happy Mother's Day. And speaking of mothers, the female osprey is on the nest behind me right here, incubating some eggs. What a crazy morning it's been here. I got here about 9 a.m. and the female was perched on a tree nearby the nest, grooming herself. The male was on the nest incubating the eggs. They eventually switched places, and another female flew in, tried to land on the nest. The male chased her off. They eventually flew across the road and off in the distance behind me here.
male came back and was perched on a branch nearby, and then another male came in and swooped in low on the nest, and the male chased him off. So there's apparently another pair of osprey in the area, and they've been making a move on the nest here. I got all kinds of photos. There was a great blue heron flew right overhead with some nesting material. So it's been a pretty busy morning here. I'm gonna head back to the studio and see how all these photos turned out, and we'll see you then.
When I got to the nesting site, the female was perched on a nearby branch, preening herself. She probably just finished a meal. The female is almost always on the nest, protecting the nest and incubating the eggs, unless she's off the nest to feed and take a little bit of a break, in which case the male is on the nest, protecting the nest and incubating the eggs while she's eating and preening herself. So she perched on a nearby branch and saw the male flying by her. He flew over to a nearby perch and landed on that and gave me a nice pose. But then the female looked over at the nest and thought, "You knucklehead, you left it unattended." So she takes off and heads back to the nest to protect the nest and incubate the eggs. And here she is coming in for a landing. I always love getting photos of them coming in for a landing, the way they spread their wings out and extend their talons. It's always very dramatic. So she lands on the nest, and not long after that, I saw a great blue heron flying over with a big branch in its mouth. It was heading to its nest with some nesting material, and I was really lucky to get some really nice photos of this beautiful bird. Then I saw another osprey coming in. I thought it was the male returning. Here it is. It's going to land on the nest, but it was not Mr. Osprey. This was another female that was attempting to land in the nest that was already occupied. Here comes Mr. Osprey to defend the nest. So he chases her off. And this is not unusual. Osprey will try to invade each other's nests and try to mate with osprey that they have not already paired up with. But this is the first time I had seen this behavior at this nest. So Mr. Osprey's, taking a fly around, and then all of a sudden another male osprey comes in. The interloper male is on the lower side here, and Mr. Osprey is above him, chasing him off. So he had his work cut out for him this morning. He had two almost back-to-back attacks here, and here he is chasing off the other osprey. So you can cue the Top Gun music, and then he did a couple of flyovers to make sure that everything was secure, landed back on the nest, and then the male osprey came back and was hovering over the nest, and Mr. Osprey was like, "Hey, get out of here. Don't make me come back up there."
That wraps up this edition of Osprey Watch 22. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. It really helps out. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and ring the bell if you want to be notified when that content is available. We'll see you next time. Until then, stay focused.